Hey guys, thanks for joining with us on the line. We're in our last week of our relationship series where Anthony's going to be talking about family. But right before that, we're going to jump into worship. God, as we get into this time of worship, God, in such an interesting time in church, God, I pray we still treat this normally, God. God, that we don't just turn away from our screens, God, that we're not distracted by everything going on around us, but God, we give this our full attention. God, that we worship you fully in this time. I've carried a burden, and I've carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go, and I see it now. I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Whoa, whoa. You saw my condition. You saw my condition. I had a plan from the start. Your son for redemption, the price for my heart. I don't have the context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I'll run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Whoa, whoa, again and again and again and again. Whoa, whoa. My heart has been in your sights long before my first breath, running into your arms, running till I come dead. I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out, and just as I am, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. I'll run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again. I'll run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. heart found a searching, my soul found a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Whoa, whoa, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. God, you are. God, you are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. God, you are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. One more time. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
What's up, Collide? It's me, it's Anthony, and I'm so glad that you're joining us via your home or wherever you're at. Hopefully it's in your house, but I hope you're in your PJs. I hope you're comfortable, and I just want to echo that we are in our last week of the relationship series where we've talked about, if you're just joining us, we've done this relationship series for the last 5 weeks. We've talked about singleness, friendship, dating, marriage, and now we're on family. And I think this is a really important message. So make sure as you're watching, you don't just like press play and you're like doing little chores around your house because your parents are yelling at you to clean your room. Make sure you don't do that, okay? Make sure you grab your notebook, make sure you grab your Bible, make sure you're attentive, because then you'll get a better seat in heaven, okay? So make sure you keep writing stuff down and you pay attention, because I believe that God has a lot to say through this. So before I start, I think it'd be awesome if we prayed. So can I do that with you? Sweet. You can't say no. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this opportunity where we get to meet via online, and we live in a day and age where we can do that. So I pray that you speak through me, and I pray that, God, this is a one-take wonder, and I pray that, God, that you really change hearts and you change minds through this sermon. In your name I pray. Amen. Well, okay, so we talked about on Sunday a little bit. I gave you a preface of the broken family, the Collide family, and the family of God. So I just kind of want to like rehash those things. And first, it was the broken family. We talked about the broken family and how every family is broken, no matter if you come from like perfect people. Unless you come from perfect people, you come from a broken family. And if we look back into Genesis 3, so while I'm blabbering up here, make sure, so start turning your Bible to Genesis 3, and remember, when you're alone, you can still say, yip, yip, when you get there. So Genesis 3, turn there with me, but just remember that even if your parents aren't divorced, even if your parents, like, you don't have a stepdad, you don't have all these layers, we still come from this broken family where none of us are perfect. No one is perfect, and we are all imperfect people. So as you're turning there, read with me Genesis 3. because it says that after this event in history, no one else is perfect after that. So that's why every family after Genesis 3 is a broken family. So if you would read with me in verse 7, it says, well, let's go to verse 6. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desired to make one wise, she took its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. And the eyes of both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. And so if we read that and it's like we're watching a movie, right? It's like you see that like in a horror movie, you see the lady like go down to her basement by herself, like, and you're screaming like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And that's kind of the same thing what we're doing here is in this passage. We see Eve, she's like about to eat the fruit, and we're like, "No, don't do it, don't do it." And then when they do, they eat the forbidden fruit. We see that in verse 7, the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. So I want you to remember that. They sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. Like they made themselves like the freshest outfits they could make. So I want you to remember that. Because if we continue to read in verse 21, so turn to verse 21, we can just overlook that statement of, okay, they sewed fig leaves together, and then and it says in verse 21, the Lord made for Adam and Eve, his wife, garments of skins and clothed them. I think that's crazy. Like we can just like skip that. We can just like let that go over our heads. We could be like, okay, maybe God didn't really just like their choice of clothing. Maybe God wanted to say, honesty is modesty. Maybe that's what it was. But actually, when you read the text, it says, and the Lord made for Adam and for his wife garments of skins and clothed them. Of skins. So this is crazy. Like I couldn't even imagine that that picture of Adam and Eve. Like they've never seen like the bloodshed of an animal like that, and just to think of that moment. It says after they ate the fruit, they went and they hid, and you ask yourself, why did they hide? Because they were full of shame. They were full of shame because they took a direct command from God and they turned away against it, and then they committed the first sin ever. And because of that sin, they were full of shame and full of guilt, so they hid from God. And I love if we read into that, it says God used the garments of skin, so he had to like shed the blood of an animal in order to clothe them and like clothe them and like cover their shame. And I think that's an awesome foreshadowing of that God like uses blood to like cover sin, and it foreshadows that that for thousands of years, like after this, the people of Israel would like kill animals to cover their sin. And it foreshadows like the fact that Jesus like shed his blood on the cross to wash away our sin, to wash away our shame, so that we can live shameless and we can live as children of God and belong to his family. And I think that's a beautiful picture. But the reason why I say that is after this event in like history, we all come from a broken family. And like I said, all families are different. Like all families are different, and like even in the way we react to the coronavirus, right? Because like I don't know, maybe your family is like, oh, we don't care about the coronavirus and like or whatever. And like there's some families that are like, man, I got some freeze-dried food that'll last me 30 years. I got like packets of it in the back. Like I don't know, there's different reactions. I know I called my mom yesterday, and my mom was like, hey, AJ, are you washing your hands? Are you washing your hands? And every time I call her, she's asking me if I'm washing my hands. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm on the phone with you. I'm not washing my hands. And my dad's like, hey, just to let you know, I've been going to Costco every day this week. I've been going every day this week. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like families are different in the way they react to the coronavirus too. So with that, I want us to turn to Ephesians 6:2-3, knowing that our families are different. But we have this in common, is that we're all broken people. And then we all come from a broken family. So if you turn to me to God Eats Popcorn, God Eats Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1-2. It says, in Ephesians 6, children, obey your parents in the Lord. Obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, for this is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land. So the reason why I'm not reading the rest is it talks about like dads and moms, and it talks about the family dynamic, but I'm talking like mainly to us, because a lot of us, we're children. Like we're a child to our parents. And the reason why I read this is because it's confusing sometimes, because it's like, why did God include that in there? And why did God include it in the 10 Commandments? Like, oh, children, obey your mother and your father. Like, why? Why is that? And I believe there's a few points. So if you're taking notes, which I know you are, I trust that you are, there are 3 points and why I believe God gave this commandment. So the first point is that I believe it's because every parent is flawed. Every parent, and God knew that. Every parent is flawed. We come from broken families, and there are no perfect parents. So with that, like knowing that we need to like obey and honor our father and our mother, even in their brokenness, that's a command from the Lord. And number 2 is, this is so practical, is I wouldn't be here without them. Like you wouldn't be here without your parents, no matter if they were good or they were bad, or like you don't know your parents, whatever. Like God chose those 2 people to bring you together so you could come into life, into this world. I think that's crazy. Is God chose those 2 people to have you be in existence. Without those 2 people, like you wouldn't be here. And that brings the third point, is God chose their DNA to make you unique. How crazy is that? Is that like your parents, they came together and they made you, and without like those 2 people, like they would not, like whether like your dad was good, your mom was bad, whatever the dynamic is, like God chose those 2 people to make you who you are. And I think that's amazing, because it says in Psalm 39, it says that like God knit you together in your mother's womb. Like God like pieced every piece of you, every part of you together in your mother's womb. And God chose your parents for a purpose. And that's why, like, even if like, oh, your parents say, oh, you're an accident, you're not. You're not, because it says God knit you together in your mother's womb. He would knit and formed your intricacies in your mother's womb while you're still in your mom's womb. And I think that's amazing that we can know the truth that you were made for purpose and on purpose. You were not an accident. And I love that. And here's the thing is we all have that. Those are truths for everyone. And so, okay, if you're watching online, which you are, and if you have shared this experience, I want you to clap twice, okay? If your mother went through labor so that you could be born, I want you to clap twice. Clap twice. Okay, clap twice. So because of that, make sure to thank your mom. I don't know. Make sure to honor your parents. It says honor your father and your mother. So make sure you like honor them, and like thanking your mom and your dad for sacrificing so much for you so that you could be here, so that you could be the person that you are. And so you might like have that question, how do I honor my parents? How do I honor my parents? And I believe it's just by humbling yourself and listening to them. Humbling yourself and listening to them. Because at this age, sometimes it becomes so easy to like look at your parents' flaws and to like point them out and be like, I'm not listening to you. You're like, I don't want to listen to you, man. And you could just like focus on the flaws of your parents. But here's the thing, you have flaws too. Okay, so no one's perfect. So we can't discount someone because of their flaws, especially if they're your parents. As it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And I heard this once. I heard that even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. I love that. Even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. And saying that even though we're imperfect people, even though your parents are imperfect, it would like be advantageous for us to like listen, to humble ourselves and to listen to them, because even though they're broken and we're broken, they have wisdom nuggets, and I promise you that they do, to help us along in life. And it says in Proverbs 23:22, listen to your father's advice and don't despise your mother's experience. It says that, Proverbs 23:22. So we as children need to like listen to our parents' advice, to humble ourselves and to understand that we're broken and they're broken. And then that, and to understand that God gave your parents to you for a purpose. They did. Even if they were good or bad, God gave you your parents for a purpose. And to understand that you honor God when you honor your parents. How crazy is that? Is it in this call of singleness and devotion to the Lord, you honor your parents. And you honor God when you honor your parents. And I think that's amazing because God made you, regardless of your accident or whatever, but he made you with purpose and on purpose. You're not an accident. And the second point is a Collide family. The Collide family. And I love this because so excited because I love all of you guys, and I'm really excited that we get to do this online platform. And I know that as a kid, like I moved around a lot. Maybe you guys resonate with me. Some of you guys have like you guys have this house and you're like, oh man, I've grown up in that house my whole entire life. Well, I don't have that story. But I just know with me, like family isn't the house I grew up in. But family is the people in that house, is the people around me, the people that have raised me, the people that like were there for me, and that's family. And that's the same thing with the Collide family. That's the same thing with the church. It's that even though we're not meeting in a building, even though we're not meeting at the midweek or whatever, church is not a building that we meet in, but church is the people in like around you that love you, that will strengthen you, that will sharpen you. That's what church is. That's why we have this opportunity as a Collide family, like to like still like talk to each other, to still love on each other, like through text or call or whatever. But the reason why we can't meet together right now is because we have to follow what the government says, like what the CDC recommends, and it says, and that's our call as Christians. Like that is our call as Christians. And it says in Romans 13:1, it says, let everyone be subject to governing authorities, for there's no authority except for which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. That's crazy, right? So in this crazy time, how does that apply to our Collide family? In this crazy time, like in the crazy time of world history, like this is nuts. You're living history right now. It's nuts. But with school canceled, with Collide moving to an online platform, 1 Timothy 1:7 says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. So there's no need like to be afraid, Collide. There's no need. Like in this crazy time, like I'm telling you, please put your trust in God. Please spend time in the Word. Please like use this time when you're at home, not to just like be on your phone or like watch TV, but to spend time in the Lord, especially if you're afraid. Because it says in Galatians that by us spending time with God, we get peace as a byproduct of spending time with God. And it says in Ephesians that He himself is our peace. And how amazing is that? That if we just spend time with God, like we get peace as a byproduct. So Collide, if you are fearful in this time, please put your trust in God. Put your trust fully in Him, because fear is not from God. And if you are afraid, please like message your small group leader, message your small group, message your Collide family, and we'll pray for you and we'll call you, whatever it takes. But remember, as a Collide family, we live in this awesome time. I know it's crazy because we're in home isolation, but we live in this awesome time right now that we get to like communicate online and we get to love on each other that way. And so Collide, make sure you're texting each other. Make sure you guys are calling each other. Make sure you guys are checking in on each other, saying, hey, how can I pray for you? Sending each other Bible verses via text, whatever it is. But remember to keep this Collide family going. Just because we're not in a church building doesn't mean we're not still the church, because we are a family and we're together. So remember that. And the last point I want to hit is the family of God. The family of God. So if you would turn to me to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11. Go yip yip when you're there. Don't forget the yip yips. It says, chapter 2, verse 11. Therefore remember that at one time you Gentiles in the flesh called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision, which is made in the flesh by hands. Remember that you were at that time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. And we could read that and we could be like, what's all this uncircumcision? What the heck? What is all this stuff? Like, doesn't make any sense. Well, if we understand, it's Paul writing to us. It says Gentiles. At one time you were Gentiles. When we are everyone who's not Jewish is a Gentile. And Paul is saying is that remember you aren't Jewish. And he's saying, remember at one time that in the past, remember how you were treated for not being, And he's talking to the history of like new Christians, because like at that time, people who weren't Jews like weren't considered God's people. And so because like Jesus, like because of his work on the cross, we are invited into this family. And he says, remember that at one time you were separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the promise. He says, remember that? Remember that without Jesus' work on the cross, that you were nobody, that you were alienated from God, you weren't even allowed in like close to heaven or to even the blood of Jesus. You were alienated away. He says, without the work of Jesus' work on the cross, there's no way you'd be part of this family. And so as we read that, we can be like, what the heck? Why does that even mean that? And I believe Paul's writing that because he says, remember where you came from. Remember where you came from. Because I mean, I've been a Christian for a long time, and I grew up in the church, and so it's easy for me just to think like, oh man, like I'm a Christian, whatever. And I could be so nonchalant about, I'm in God's family, whatever. Or you could be so nonchalant about it, and we could even be at some point like, God, man, it's a good thing you have me on your team. It's a good thing you have me at your family, like. And we become like, we believe that we could earn like our way into heaven, or we believe that we could just like, we deserve this. We deserve it because we're good people. And we just start to believe this the longer we're Christians. But Paul says, remember that at one time, without the work of Jesus in your life, you were alienated from the promise that God has for you. So it's not because of anything that you've done, not because of anything good or bad that you've done, but it's because of the finished work of Jesus, you were allowed into his family. And I love that is the truth, because there's nothing that I could do that can make Jesus love me any more or any less. How amazing is that? How amazing is that? Is that we need to remember that as Collide, in this Collide family, we live in broken families. We are in a Collide family, but also that we are in God's family, not because of anything that we've done, but because of everything that he has done. And I love that. And I want to close. I want to close with this story. And I don't know if it's like not a very marketable story. It's in the Bible. If you want to read it, it's in 2 Samuel chapter 9. But like a lot of people haven't heard it, because I believe people haven't heard it, and he's not in the storybooks or VeggieTales because he has a pretty unmarketable name. His name is Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth. Like, I can't even say it, and I'm 23 years old. Like, I can't even imagine, like, a little kid going, hey, mommy, like, can we read? No, mom, let's read Mephibosheth tonight. Like, a 4-year-old couldn't say that. I'm 23, I can't even say it. Okay, so it's this beautiful story of, in 2 Samuel, and Mephibosheth, see, he was a son of King Jonathan. He was a son of Prince Jonathan, because King Saul was his dad. We talked about King Saul a lot. But Mephibosheth was the son of Jonathan, so grandson of King Saul. And after power changed hands in the kingdom, there was this shift. And everyone was running out of the temple, and little Mephibosheth was like a baby. The person taking care of him like had one job, but she dropped him. She dropped the baby, and that's like the number one rule. Don't drop the baby, or don't shake the baby, but don't drop the baby. And she dropped Mephibosheth, and he fell on his legs, and he broke his legs. So from then on, he couldn't walk. He was labeled as a cripple for his whole life. And back then, I don't think there was not like much room for people like who couldn't walk to have jobs, because every job like required your legs and like required heavy labor. And there was no like job for like a computer programmer or computer engineer or a social media influencer. There's none of that. And so if we look back, like he most likely was on the streets. He most likely lived on the streets, and he was crippled, and he was begging for money. He went from the palace as a child, and now he's on the streets as an adult. He can't walk, forced to beg. And we don't know how he was treated either. Because usually after a regime change, he, like the old regime isn't treated good by the new one. And so we could see this man, like he had everything in the world when he was little, but now as an adult, he has nothing. He's forced to beg. He's out on the street, probably being spit on, probably being like, hey, you're the grandson of Saul. And so he's probably not even saying, this is who I am. So he's ashamed, living on the side of the street. And I love this story. love the story. You're asking, Anthony, why? It's because of the ending. If we continue to read, King David, he remembers while he's on his throne, he says, man, I loved my best friend Jonathan. I wonder if there's any way that I could bless him, any way I could love him. And they said, and he asked one of his people, and his people said, yeah, I think there's one. I think he had a son. I think his name was Mephibosheth. And David was like, Mephibosheth who? Mephibosheth what? Never, you know what? Just get him. So they went searching, and they found him at the same street corner that he was at, begging for money. They came up to him. He's like, hey, would you spare any change? And they're like, no, I'm going to take you to the king's place. And I love this story because they take Mephibosheth, they take him out of his dirty rags, they pluck his eyebrows, they give him a fresh fade, they put him in the shower, they give him a shower, and they dress him up all fancy like, they give him fresh Nikes or fresh cowboy boots, and a nice felt cowboy hat, and they put him at the king's table. They carted him to the king's table. And when he got there, I can imagine he probably cut the silence with a butter knife. It's so awkward. But thinking Mephibosheth, saying, so King David, you knew my dad, huh? And King David lights up, and he goes, oh man, let me tell you, the craziness, the crazy times we had. And they start to laugh, they start to cry, they start to have this amazing time together. And after that moment, King David declared that Mephibosheth would eat at the king's table for the rest of his life. And how amazing is that? How amazing is that he came from the streets, from nothing, to sitting at the king's table for the rest of his life. And I love this story because it's not because of anything that he could have done. It had nothing to do with who he was. It had nothing to do with what he did, but had everything to do with who his father was. And that's the same thing with us, Collide. Is that we are invited to the promise, we are invited to God's kingdom, not because of anything that we could have done, not because of anything good or bad that we could have done, but has everything to do with who our Heavenly Father is. And that is an amazing promise that because of Jesus' blood, that we are now called co-heirs, we are called members in the household of God. How amazing is that? And so if you aren't part of this family yet, if you aren't part of the family of God, please, find someone who is and ask them, how do I do it? How do I do it? Ask your small group leader, ask someone in your small group. Be like, I want to be part of the family of God. But understand that we here at Collide, we love you. We thank you so much for watching. And that just remember that we all come from broken families. You are part of a Collide family. And even more importantly, not because of anything you've done, but because of who your Father is, you are part of the family of God. Let me pray for you. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for Collide and for everyone who's going to watch. God, we just pray that, God, you touch hearts with this message and that you speak through the speakers in the computer and that you speak to our hearts. God, we just pray for everyone who's going to watch that you churn their hearts to become good soil. In your name I pray. Amen.
Sing, we love you. We love you. We'll never stop. We can't live without you, Jesus. We love you, and we can't get enough. All this is for you, Jesus. God, let us be reminded of that. The reason why we even tune in to these services, God, is for you. God, the reason why we still worship online, we listen to sermons online, God, is because you are that important. God, because that you mean that much to us in our lives. Sing, come. So come and consume, God, all we are. We give you permission. Our hearts are yours. We want you. Our hearts are yours, we want you. We want you. And come and consume, God, all we are. We give you permission. Our hearts are yours, we want you. We want you. One more time, come. And come and consume, God, all we are. We give you permission. Our hearts are yours, we want you. Oh God, we want you. We love, 'cause we love you. And we'll never stop. We can't live without you. Jesus, we love you. Oh, and we can't get enough. All this is for you, Jesus. Oh, we love you. And we'll never stop. We can't live without you, Jesus. We love you. Oh, and we can't get enough. All this is for you, Jesus. God, this is all for you. God, the reason why, even as a church, we continue to film sermons, film worship, God, it's because of how important you are. And God, I pray we don't treat you like you're that important in our lives right now. God, I pray we reprioritize. God, that we put you at the center of our lives. God, that we truly ask that to come and consume all we are, God. And God, those aren't just words in worship, but God, the truth. So God, we love you. We thank you for everything you've given us in our lives, and we praise you in your name. Amen. And guys, that's all we have for you today. So glad that you guys are tuning in with us online. We hope to see you guys soon, but if not, still check in on Sunday for our next online sermon, and we'll see you then.